So today's topic, we're going to talk about working with realtors and questions that can come from the realtor side of it on choosing, the people they associate or work with, and also how we pick our realtors that we work with for our products and our systems. So yeah.
So as always, we want to encourage you guys to ask lots of questions. So whether you're on Instagram, Facebook, or Zoom, just type your questions in the chat and we would love to address those. And yeah, and we have another special little visitor here today. This is my last week with Mr. Bunny Guy. So I figured he would join us.
He gets handed off to the family.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to his home this week.
Nice. So when it comes to us and working with realtors, we really don't work with one specific realtor. We have actually quite a few we work with. It just comes down to if they can learn our systems, the products that we look for, the areas that we buy in, and have a good understanding of that, and then be able to, however that works on their side, find those products. And I would recommend that with anyone that's in real estate investing. It makes sense to try not to pigeonhole. It's good to work with your key people, but I don't recommend, pigeonholing yourself to one realtor, because there is no way for one realtor to see every house and every product that you will potentially need. Again, it depends on the volume you're putting through as well, right? Like with us buying a house a day, we need to work with multiple realtors to hit that. And also now that we're in another city, it makes sense. It wouldn't make sense for our realtor here to try and be covering off a complete another city.
But at the same time, that would make sense if they were interested in growing their team and maybe they wanted to pair with somebody and train someone in that market on their systems, right? Really, the opportunities are endless. It just really comes down to people being growth minded as opposed to just wanting to stay where they are. And now at the same time, that is everybody's own opinion or their capacity. They need to figure out what works for them. So for us, we've got people who work just by themselves as realtors or whatever, and we have other people who have teams. They've hired assistants, they've built out their pipeline, and that's something that they're focused on. So for us, we don't limit anybody. We always just say, what's your capacity? This is what we're looking for. How do you think we can best fit working together? And it works or it doesn't. We try it, and it works or it doesn't, right? It's just, again, adapting and figuring it out.
So we might as well bring in. So we were supposed to have Paul, but Paul is actually in the process of working on having, I shouldn't say he is, his wife is working on having a baby. So yeah, so in May, there's going to be a little one, and so something came up and they have to deal with that. So Tyler, come on in.
Priorities.
Yeah. So
hello.
Adjusted. So in regards to this is Tyler. Sorry.
So Tyler.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about where you work with and all?
Absolutely, definitely, yeah. So first of all, I will thank you for having me here today. And I love your little bunny friend. Definitely pocket rabbit. And yeah, so we have to social distance in these crazy times that everyone out there you're all dealing with. So I am a realtor with Realty Saskatoon. Been licensed as a realtor in residential real estate. And I'll just start with that.
Awesome. Yeah. So interesting story, background on partially how Tyler and us met. Actually, a couple years before we even started working together, we met at your home because you were at the time also a saltwater and fish enthusiast.
Absolutely.
And he was having to take down his tank, and why was that?
I happen to be a father of 3 young boys right now. My first one was recently just born, and I decided that as much as I love my aquarium, that time was best spent with my family. So I downsized and got the business temporarily, and Alisa came over and bought a bunch of my product, and that's the thing about aquariums is that we swap.
Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting though, how, you know, how the world works and how small it is, because we actually met that at least
5 years ago.
it was 5 years ago, and then we've probably been working with you for what, 2 years now for buying houses. So I just thought that was such a unique thing that we had actually met previously, and then the next thing you know, and then we'd also seen each other, your style, or one of the things that Tyler does very, very well is he's follows the foreclosure systems and whatever for purchasing houses. So he also goes to the courthouse, or did, I don't know how that looks now, but did, to find properties. So again, his unique way of finding houses is why he fits in our demographic of realtors that we work with. And we'll break down into lots more of that nitty gritty. So I'll just see our team wrote some questions and we'll go through some of that.
There's a couple of points.
There is, yeah.
So one is, you heard them say, they met 5 years ago and we only started working together 2 years ago. So this is where it goes back to planting seeds, right? Melissa and I have been telling everybody who we are, what we do. And, you know, people lots of times across Saskatoon or whatnot will be like, oh, I've heard of them. I don't know what they do, but I've heard of them. So again, for us, we've been trying to really hone in on our branding and figuring out like how to best communicate to people what it is we actually do. Because some people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Okay, well, that's great. But what do we do, right? And so for us, it's good that people have heard about us, but we really want to go back and go home to like, hey, are you a distressed homeowner? Do you know somebody who might be interested in selling a property? Hey, do you know somebody who is looking to generate more wealth into their world, whether it be monthly cash flow or wealth building for the future? That's what we do. We provide amazing passive investment opportunities, right? And so that's been a lesson for Alisa and myself, is just honing in on that message and being able to best communicate it. But, you know, sometimes you drop those seeds and then your lives come across each other's paths again at a later point. So this is exactly that kind of story.
Yeah. And since we started working together, Tyler has really honed in and learned all of the things that we really look for, and he's doing a great job of finding ones that aren't necessarily easy nuggets to find. It is a little bit of work, but again, now that you know the parameters though, how do you find it for finding the products?
Well, a lot of the product I do find you is distressed property, as well as, I mean, of course, I do also end up getting you a lot of multi, which is kind of where I kind of started and specialized with, even before I was a realtor. I bought my first investment property in 2009 and became a landlord myself. So that learning, and that took some time, a couple of years in the process as well, just to understand all the different aspects of what it makes a good investment. So I brought that to the table, the ladies who understand, we're looking at cash flow, we're looking at properties. So, so yeah, my specialization in developed over the last number of years. That is another just a niche in the puzzle that definitely helps the ladies find those kind of properties that are undervalued. I mean, ultimately, the reality is foreclosure property sells anywhere from the low end, 85% to 95% of fair market value. So there are some foreclosure properties that sit out there in the marketplace that are overpriced, and ultimately we know, and because I specialize in it, there's definitely some advantages
For sure. So there's a quick also nugget there about like with foreclosures. The key too here is Tyler's kind of working with pre-foreclosure. He's working with the actual homeowner before the bank is taking it. And trying to, yes, correct. And the key there is that's super important because again, once it goes to the bank, it's a whole different ball game for dealing with a foreclosure property and all that. And a lot of times the cool thing is we're actually doing a good service by helping them when they're in that pre-foreclosure position, because if we are able to buy the property and Tyler is able to educate the client that, you know, you're actually going to help your credit. You're actually, you know, because once you cross that threshold that the bank has taken in your house, that is a huge hit to a person's credit. and potentially could make it impossible for them to buy a house for decades. And, nobody wants that there. And especially in these times right now, there are people out there that really aren't educated on options, because all they're going to hear is stuff coming from the bank and that kind of thing. Whereas people like Tyler can come in and say, hey, you should really look at, I understand that, this is a horrible situation, but ultimately you should really look at selling your house. And I have clients that could potentially make this transition as stress-free as possible for you, right? So again, that's a really big service that you can do for people and helping people. And you see that side too, right, Tyler, with dealing with the people?
Absolutely. I mean, the first primary goal when I come in is, I say to every homeowner, do you absolutely want to keep this house? I'm trying to exhaust some resources, and ultimately sometimes I don't get paid for what I do, but I don't represent the bank, I don't represent the lawyer. I'm there to help.
And that's a good comment.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes it makes sense to sell. But there are some options that we can do, and there are some very good serious benefits, which is credit, which alludes to being able to kind of get yourself back in out of so,
Especially right now, with everything.
the court system is still fairly I think last week gave the goal to start pushing property and to start chasing us down. So we are going to see, and right now with release with people with mortgage funds, but those some people that haven't been able to get themselves out of water, we're going to see a lot of this happening, starting to roll through in the next 60 days and all the way for the next year.
And what do you think, in your professional opinion, Tyler, that'll do to the real estate market right now? Very seller's market, right?
Yes.
That changed drastically from the beginning of this year.
It did.
It was very much a buyer's market in Saskatoon here. So what do you think that's going to look like in the next few months here?
You know what? I always wish I had a crystal ball to be able to see what's going to happen. I mean, as you say, right now it is a seller's market. It's a great time to be selling. It's difficult for buyers. I think it's just going to help boost the supply. I can't say what's going to happen in spring, summer. Our price is going to drop. It is possible, but at the same time, a lot of these foreclosure properties are going to start to come to the marketplace. And when they do, this is going to create inventory. So when that likely, generally a lot of distressed property are poor condition. So we are going to see a lot more properties that do need TLC fixing and for flipping and stuff like that. So
You're saying there'll be some great epic product.
well,
The other capacity we work with Tyler in as well is actually he has sold our last two properties we flipped to the public.
Yes.
And it was interesting because again, for us, we're always like, hey, what makes the most sense? Let's make sure that we are working with somebody who can represent the product properly and that we're going to get top dollar, we're going to sell really quickly. So what's interesting is when we've done this with multiple different realtors, and you're the only one, Tyler, we've actually listed flip to the public with twice. So yeah, so again, this kind of came by trying, right? Where I was like, let's try it and see what happens. So we had sold one property with an agent and it went okay. And then the agent just kind of why certain agents work for a certain time period, and then some people fall off and whatever. But then we listed another one, sold it with another agent. It went okay, but at the end of the day, the agent wasn't as hands-on as we needed or wanted. And so for me, when I'm looking at a good agent, I'm looking at somebody who's always available, who's going to answer the phone, get back to people in a timely manner, because it's not like you're trying to sell a house or anything, right? So at the end of the day, when we talked to Tyler, we brought him through one of our flips before it was done. This was the second last one we sold. And we said, okay, here's our MO, right? We come in, we design these amazing houses. Alyssa does a lot of the layout as far as making it really functional. I come in, do the design aspect, stages of the nines. Our houses they look great, right? And of course, I'm biased because it's our property, but we know what we're doing when it comes to flipping. Now, traditionally, it hasn't made sense to flip on the open market here because we were in a buyer's market for so long. But the odd time we get a juicy house and it just doesn't make sense to keep as a cash flowing rental property. So for us, it's like, okay, flip to the public. Now, in the past, whenever we tried to do one of these houses, it has never gone well. We've literally ended up having to fire contractors, bring in new contractors. Like
That's showing itself.
yeah, one property had 3 sets of different contractors. Took us years. It was a nightmare. So now, again, adapt. Now we have a really great crew that we give him and his contractors, or he's the contractor and his crew, we give him full projects. They usually take about 4 to 6 months. He takes over the full project. It's going very well. So when we did these last projects, they came in, cleaned everything up, got it done. So when we went to Tyler, we said, here's the product. You tell us what it's going to sell for. So we knew we were probably not going to make a lot of money because again, we had a lot of extra hold costs and all that kind of stuff. Now we didn't go to Tyler and say, Tyler, we need to sell it for this price point because that's not realistic, right? The numbers are the numbers. Tyler's going to go, he's going to run his numbers, do his market analysis and come back and tell us our options. So in his expert opinion, he's going to come back and say, okay, I think if you list it for here, we're going to get some interest. We might scare off some people because there's a high price per square foot for this neighborhood, but I think we can still get people in the door because there's not a lot of comparable inventory available in this neighborhood. We always get really desirable neighborhoods, good starter home families, all that kind of stuff.
I call that operating efficient.
There we go. There we go. See, he's even got the terminology.
That's our fishing price.
Yeah.
This is where I think it's gonna sell, and this is our discounted price if we want to move.
Exactly. So for us, when we're looking to the public, we don't want to discount because we know we have an amazing product. Now, what our choice is do we want to go for the fishing price, maybe scare off some people who might be scared off by that price tag, or do you want to just go ahead with one? We're going to get 1 million people through the door. We're probably going to get an offer the same day and go from there. So on house number 1, we were like, let's just try go high. And I think we ended up selling it for, I can't remember, that's like
Whitewood, yeah, and that was a property that was a foreclosure that we picked up. Like that property, by the first day it listed, there was 10 offers in the first 6 hours. Our offer was not the highest, but we got the property. And
the reason for that was.
that was when we bought.
and that's when we bought it. And that's part of the relationship that I have with some of the lawyers in the foreclosure industry. Definitely contributed to that. And so yeah, when we did turn around and flip it for the sale, we did, I said, this is where it's going to sell at, and we want to try a little higher. Okay, put it on, and within the first 10 days, we had that offer. We marketed heavily, open houses, got lots of people through it. We got that offer, and it did sell slightly above that target price.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it's having the right agent who knows what our expectations are. And then of course, us being able to communicate properly that, hey, this is what we do. We put a great product on the market. It's your job now to go out and market it. What's interesting is we don't ever go to the agent for the listing and say, hey, you need to cut your commission by $5,000, right?
No, they haven't had that conversation.
And we don't dicker. Yeah. No, and we don't dicker because at the end of the day, if he's going to come in and do what he is great at and we get the property sold, why would we try and pound somebody down on their paycheck? That doesn't make sense.
That goes against our integrity.
For sure. Now, some people have a different MO. Some people list 20 houses a year and they might say, hey, I want a $5,000 reduction or this or this or this or this or this, whatever. That's not something we do. Everybody does their own stuff. But for us, we just want the property sold right away. So that was great. We had an amazing experience working with Tyler. And then from there, we ended up deciding to list our Avenue K property, which is the one we did an epic hour on. We did I think it was like a month ago or whatever. We did the walkthrough and all that stuff. And same thing, we were like, hey, it was a really great experience working with Tyler. Let's bring him in and see what his analysis is on this house. What was so interesting there, and I think we talked about this in that epic hour, but I went in, when we originally bought the house, we expected to sell it for $230,000, right? So now all of a sudden, 3 years later, we end up getting this house done and ready and on the market. And again, we had way more holding costs than expected because that's a long time. We pay our investors very low, but again, that's not a problem, not an investor problem. So when we had, like I said, done the original walkthrough or bought it from me, we had expected to sell it for $230,000. Now, when we actually had it done and I walked through, I was like, listen, I think this could sell for like $250,000, man. This is the gem. The market's really hot. Yeah, what do we do? So we were like, Tyler, come through. Let us know what your expert opinion is. Well, what did you know? His expert opinion was let's list it $259,900, 10 grand higher than we even forecasted. And I was like, yeah. And so I was like, man, do you think you can support that price point? Like that's kind of smack matching prices were floods in this neighborhood, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, let's go for it. And that was insane. Within the first 24 hours of it listing, we had like, what, 15 viewings booked? I can't remember, it was crazy.
Yeah, we had about that many, and within that first time frame, we did have, 2 offers.
Right.
Yeah, so we did have both offers, and that first offer came in very quickly, and that was actually part of the pre-marketing plan. I did have that property already pre-marketed 2 weeks before we even put it on the MLS. So that person was primed, and they were calling me already, when can we get in? When can we get in? But at the same time, we cultivate all the best options in the pricing that we could, so.
Yeah, and so there's two sides of people who look at that. Some people might say, well, you didn't list high enough, right? And some people would say, well, why would you accept that first offer? You should have held all offers for the whole weekend to create a bidding frenzy, right? Again, that's some people's mindsets. For us, it's first come, first serve. We love to reward action takers. So let's just go. So when Tyler called me that first day and said, hey, and I said, don't, he's like, I have something for you. I said, I don't want to price damn offer and I bleeped out some words. And he's like, it is. I was like, what? Yeah, which is like a dream, right? Conditional to home inspection and financing, which is typical, whatever. And yeah, I was like, done. He's like, you want to take it? I was like, yeah. And he's like, what do you want to do? And then again, it came down to, do we tell other people there's a full price accepted offer or not? And again, we don't do shady business. I'm like, tell everybody there's a full price accepted offer. If you want to write a full price backup, feel free. You'll be next in line if something falls through on this one. But that is what it is. So again, within like 24 hours, we had 2 like full price offers. So
It was that evening they got the second offer, and they'd already shown, and I didn't get the chance to even tell them, hey, we already got an accepted offer. So we just got another offer, and to secure your best interest, to make sure that we got something going on, we got that accepted backup offer at full price again. So we got it ready, primed to go, which puts you in the best position to make sure that there's a little pressure on the first sale to complete.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So it was a dream. And so we, the way the market is, it's still really hot. So we actually decided to flip another one. So this one's gonna be a little bit different because it's actually close to the first flip we did with Tyler there on Whitewood, but it was a pocket listing from another agent. And at the end of the day, when he had emailed about it, I said, Alyssa, another flip? And she's like, no. And then after going to see it, she's like, yeah, another flip. So this one's gonna be a little bit different because we are actually starting with our good crew right from the get-go. So the team's really excited about it because this is a new footprint.
We've already done exterior work on it. So it was, again, that one we threw together, it was very creative. And I think that's what is a big communication factor with the realtors that partner with us, is that they're gonna be okay being creative. Tyler has had to have really different conversations with people working with us. Ironically, this one, I'll get into the story of the one we're in. We actually worked with Tyler on purchasing, and there's even a story about that one. But it is key that people understand that you have to have a realtor that isn't just, for real estate investing, isn't just a box realtor, meaning I can only do it this way, I can only do it that way. That's all there is to offer. And so we can talk about something like damage deposits, for example. Deposits. I said damage deposits. Deposits for purchasing a property, right? The typical in the market is on average is
$5,000.
okay, and ours is
$1,000.
there you go. So our team is more than willing, and especially Tyler is more than willing to go and explain that to the other parties. That, hey, the reason the girls are only putting down $1,000 is because they buy a house a day. If we go and have to put $5,000 down every time we're buying a property, that limits our pool of funds that we have to gain control of properties, right? You have to look at that. And that's, so for me, to put 5,000, and I have done larger deposits when it's necessary and it's worthwhile.
Sometimes in the foreclosure, there is court order, which is under judicial sale,
Yes.
which has written requirements.
So there's a prime example, right? And so, and if I feel the deal is worth locking up the funds, again, Tyler also understands the other side of it, where how quick, if we're gonna lock up these funds, can we get it to close, right? Can this be a week? Can this be 2 weeks? So that everything, thank you, so that everything can come together for us, so we can keep rolling, right? Because if you look at it mathematically, when Rochelle and I go in and we're buying a house, we need to make a minimum of $25,000 to $30,000 on that property to keep our company good and happy and for us to be profitable in that property, okay? So if I'm taking and putting $5,000 down on one property, that property better have a pretty significant spread to be worth my time, because that's 4,000 worth of 25 to 30,000 that I couldn't tie up. So it's like that 4 times 1, right? So that's a huge ripple effect for our company. And again, that's why our realtors do so well at going and representing who we are as a company and as a group, because it is a big conversation, because typically the standard is $5,000 deposit. And so that's going outside of that norm. And that's so important and critical, working with realtors that are going to work in real estate investment type models, because all real estate investors are in that position, right? More money that gets tied up over here means that's less funding I have over here.
Well, on the other side of that is, you can say, right? And your reputation is everything. So you have to be careful too. If you're real estate investing and you're going properties and then you're just gonna let them go, you're ruining your reputation. Word gets around, right?
Yeah.
And cities are small. As far as real estate investors go, it's pretty small. So
Yeah. So Tyler, if I had to ask, coming from the perspective of a realtor, and you're working with clients like us, real estate investors, what are 2 things that you appreciate about working with us?
Ooh, I have only 2.
I just figured I would be nice and,
not with pressure.
Yeah.
One of the most important things I like working with you is that you understand the business. I mean, when we are looking at doing, sales property, when somebody's coming in, I look, there's a scale. And on the one side, we're buying by purely emotion. And on the other side, we're buying because it makes business. And everybody falls somewhere in this line. Primary residential buyers, more on the emotions. When it comes to the business, we're working with you ladies, it's what are the numbers? Does this make sense? And that removes a lot of emotion out of the sale to be able to say that this is a business. So, it's numbers. And there's hard feelings
Yeah,
if
exactly.
it doesn't make sense.
And my number is my number, right? Like, we're gonna have those conversations. We'll be going after a property and all, nope, it's just, we're done here. And he knows where his zones are. There's no wishy-washy. There's no, I need to think about it for a week, or not very often. Sometimes I need to run some extra numbers or something, but it's usually not a lengthy period of time for me to do something like that. And I think that is also real critical coming from the real estate investor side. You need to be very good on your communication so that you're not leaving your realtor up in the air trying to guess what you want or what's going on, right? And then the other thing that Tyler's amazing at is helping us with our clauses. We have quite a few, we have almost like a mini manual of clauses that, depending on the scenario, they have to be implemented into the offers. And they're things like, so for example, one of our big things, especially with everything with COVID going on, one of the things we are doing a lot of is allowing homeowners to stay in the home for up to 30 days, sometimes after we bought it, and they just pay the utilities, right? And again, that's a clause that has to be in there. And this is another great thing about the realtors we work with that I really appreciate, is that they understand why those are there and how they protect us. So for example, when we're working with a homeowner that's gonna say, for stay, we always do a $5,000 holdback, right? So again, Tyler goes out and presents that and says, look, it's not like we're keeping their money, it's just our security that you're going to actually move out when you say you're going to move out, even though we purchased the home, right? So again, you have to find a realtor that will get creative enough to be willing to explain that to the other side, right? Because there is an education process when you're dealing with clauses like that are terms that are out of the box like that.
Performance guarantee, and we need that protection because otherwise there's what's the responsibility of the seller to make it happen. And you guys have had that experience with another realtor, and not a great situation.
Exactly. And that's true, right? So I'm just gonna go through some of the questions our team did and see if any of these, or is there anything that you would like to bring to light?
I just, the second thing, the reason why I like working with you ladies, is it's that aspect that we worked several, actually I was counting just yesterday, we've done like 10 transactions like in the last 4 months. And in that regard, so, when we go look at a property, let's just say, this is my price, this is what I'm willing to pay at the top, and I say, this is what we should offer, and you leave it with me. And sometimes there's several situations where you say, well, this is the most I'm willing to pay. Well, I got you the deal at less than that. So hey, more money in
I
your
won't
pocket.
complain.
And I'm doing a good job to try and get you as much money in the buy as I possibly.
Because we all know the money is made in the buy.
Yeah, you can't be able.
It's a very important investment. That's the first thing for money.
And actually, I'm gonna step back there too. The fact that you also own rental properties is a huge thing too, because actually, ironically, a lot of the other realtors we work with actually in some capacity own investment properties of some form. And I think that is also definitely a good aspect to look for in an agent, that potentially they've already lived that world, because they're gonna understand cash flow. They're going to understand dealing with tenants. They're going to understand how important it is when you're taking over a rental property that has tenants, that you need a copy of that lease, right? Those kinds of things to make the transition smooth, right? So again, that would definitely be another aspect that you can totally work with a realtor that's got their own rental properties. It just, to me, it kind of makes good sense. I'm not saying all of them do. I'm just saying that typically out of the group that we have, a majority of them do have their own properties, which is awesome.
It's important to say, when you say pick, have several realtors, I mean, ultimately interview several. I mean, it's one of the questions I was asking when clients call me up, and then going through my qualifications, you as to say, do you plan on interviewing more than one agent before the job is selling your home? And the reason why, I never thought about it. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say, well, great. No, I just, I want to know competition, and I think that gives me the opportunity to shine and show you what I do differently and what makes me the best choice.
And we've given out your number quite a few times too, right? Where we're like, hey, Taylor, I've literally sat with people doing a proposal or a meeting.
And you call me.
And I'm like, Tyler, I got people, I don't know, they're looking at maybe selling their house. I'm not sure if you give them an assessment, whatever.
Yep.
And I'm not tied to the outcome of that conversation. So I just put them in, connection or in contact. Here's this person's number, here's this person's number. But every single time when I'm like, hey, I'm just going to talk to my see if he's available. Generally, about 95% of the time, I was going to answer that call. And when you're trying to. Exactly. Yeah. Again, if you're tied up, that is what it is. But that communication is everything.
Yeah, like 3 days later doesn't matter.
No, and for us, like, this is where we've actually fired agents that we worked with, where we did dozens of deals, and then all of a sudden something happened. They had a life event or something where they just fell off the radar. And they just ghosted basically. And so I'm like, well, listen, this is why we do everything 2 by 2 now.
Yeah.
We have a minimum of working with 2. We work with 2 mortgage brokers, 2 lawyers, 2 realtors, 2 whatever, because at the end of the day, we don't want to have to stop our business because somebody had a life event or somebody had a meltdown or somebody had something happen. And so that was a big deal for us. And we've been screwed over a few times where we were working with somebody that were doing really, really great. And then I guess the one that was really impactful for us, they decided to peace out and go to Africa for 2 months without letting any of their clients know that they were actually leaving the continent. So that was fun. Right. And then
our mortgage broker that also moved to Spain.
Yeah,
I did
that
5 days ago and said, hey, I'm no longer going to be your mortgage broker.
Right.
And I was like,
and we found out about that from the clients. So
Yeah.
anyway, these are things that you don't want to do if you're in business for yourself. Right? So what was so interesting is we were like, okay, we're going to adapt. So at that point in time, when I could get a hold of that agent, I was like, I'm going to go find my own listing. So I literally found 13 MLS listings, called up individual agents, and I was like, hey, I got to get into these properties, and I'm literally booking my own appointments, like half an hour before, and people are like, I'm an agent. I'm like, no, what probably different deals than you do. Anyway, whatever. Show me the house or don't, I don't care. So at the end of the day, I literally, out of those 13 houses I looked at, I think I ended up buying 8 of them. And it was so weird because I think those were like somewhat listings with multiple agents, whatever. I think I met 2 of the agents I'd known before, and I think 5 of the agents were brand new. So what was interesting is from all those things, you think that if you're meeting with somebody who's like, hey, I'm buying this cash, here's what I do, here's whatever, you would think that some of those agents would have followed up to be like, hey, would you be interested in buying your houses with me?
Yeah.
What is so interesting is how many of those agents did that. So again, guys, this is where it really matters when you're in business. How do you market yourself? And what kind of person are you going to be in business? And
Ask questions.
this is why we work with a cream as a crop.
Yeah.
Because for us, I'm like, I need somebody who uses common sense, who's available, who actually runs this as a business, not as a hobby, right? And so anyway, it was super interesting.
You probably have something to say.
Well,
on
that's
that.
one of those important questions. You know, we talked about interviewing a realtor. You know, some of the important questions that I would want to ask someone, being in a position that I know I get asked those questions, is, you know, are you a full-time agent? Is this your job? Or are you selling flowers out of a garden shop on the side? I mean, there are some realtors that are in construction. And I was in that place, and that was one of those other things that I brought to the table. Is I have built infill duplexes in Saskatoon, done infill duplexes, legal suite developments, or new construction. I stopped doing that in 2015 and focused exclusively. That's what I need to be to give the best edge to my clients, knowing the market. Asking questions are the, yeah, selling isn't telling. So ask questions. Are you a full-time realtor?
And I think that's a lost in translation a lot of times, is that the realtor is working for you, not vice versa, right? Like, yes, it's a partnership. You both have to work together to some degree, but ultimately you're the one hiring that realtor. And you should take that seriously, because again, it doesn't matter if you're a first-time home buyer or you're buying rental properties or whatever that looks like. It's a large purchase transaction. You're going to want this person to align with your integrity, your beliefs, and understand the product that you're looking for, right? So if you just go grab the first realtor, or, well, this is my cousin, they're a realtor, it may not go well, right? Because you didn't go through the process of asking the questions.
And some of the other questions you can ask is, if you're listing your property, ask them for a list of their last 12 listings. If they have 12 listings that have all been on the market for 90 plus days now, you know they're not very good at their job. Because again, an agent's goal when they're listing property is to sell the property.
Yeah.
If they're not selling other people's properties, how are they going to sell yours?
Yeah.
Right? Look at performance. It's like a report card. And if they can say, hey, this is my last 12. This one is still on the market because maybe it's a really high price point, or maybe it's it's a very unique house. Maybe they can explain that one, that's fine.
Yeah.
But then they're going to say this one took 60 days to sell, this one took 30 days, this one sold in 2, right? And
And sometimes it comes down to when they're listing on the other side of it, to give the agents and stuff too, that sometimes they're dealing with just a person who has a property, and they're just, as Tyler said, there's the emotional scale and the business scale. And they're so up here on the emotional scale that they won't be realistic about pricing.
But
the
at the
product.
same time, if you're a good agent, are you dealing with those people? Does that make sense for you to even take those people as clients when you know you're going to be able to sell their property? And
Rochelle, Alisa, I just want to let you know, at the end of our meeting, one of 3 things is going to happen. 1, you're going to decide to list your property. Or 2, you're going to decide not to list your property. Or 3, I might decide not to take the listing. I just want to let you know that either one of these 3 are
Yeah.
100%. But some agents are so thirsty that they don't even look at that third thing. They're like, I'll take your listing. Oh, you want me to sell this is for free?
Oh, wow.
I'll take it. Right? I've seen this happen.
I know.
And it's so sad. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, you're never gonna be able to sell that. And by the time you get to the price, you're gonna have to do 3 to 4 to 5 price reductions. It's a skill listing. We're gonna come in probably with a low offer it on day 1. And then now 6 months later, we're probably gonna buy it for less than we originally offered. Why? Because you picked a shitty agent. That's
Yeah, we did that recently.
Yeah.
Offered it 6 months later for less than your first offer.
It's so predictable, guys. So again, like, you just have to be really smart. It's business. And if somebody's overly emotional, like, just let it go. Like, it's not worth taking the listing. Like, rant over.
But back to even when we first started and talking to realtors, I think our number was 39 that we sat down with and went through before we kind of found what we thought that might.
that was in the
work with
first 5
us.
years of business.
Yeah, and it was, and I'm not kidding you, we sat down and we
Explain
explained
how this is gonna work. We
all
explained how
the
it's
things.
coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
All
And how did we, I'm trying to remember how we met, that we ended up working together. Was it, I think you reached out, didn't you? Or-
So the time when we actually started doing this, that's when I was actually, we met at the courthouse.
That's what I thought. I was like,
Like residential tenancy case, which occasionally happens.
Yeah.
And I was there on foreclosure matters, and we just connected again. And hey, I said, Alisa, I got this great property for you on the east side, 2 units, non-legal, but we can get LES. These are just all the creative strategies of making and bringing value to the property to say, does this make sense to you? And you ladies, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. So let's offer them a low cash price.
Yeah.
And we got it. And that was like 20, 30,000 under list at the time. So
again, it's
money
that,
in the bank.
I was gonna say, and also how, when people are dealing on properties or negotiating, how critical is no conditions and cash when you're working with, dealing with the other parties for purchasing?
But it's a little more stressful myself, to be honest, because I need to make sure I'm spending time. I don't just fire the offer at you 5 minutes later. I'm actually doing diligence on it because ultimately, if they accept that offer, that's it. It's done. So I need to make sure that they're doing it the first time, right way, so that you're protected in your purchase, and that I've done my due diligence as well on the property and pulled up as what I can before we submit that offer. So I mean, that is important there. It is also important to say, hey, gosh, it's so not sitting on it and waiting, and then because ultimately the whole point of the condition time frame is renegotiation.
What about writing back a law?
Yeah, we've done that.
We've raised back the offers, yeah, on progress on that's already accepted, and it's like, well, yeah, we want to see it. I think, and there's a lot of lazy realtors out there.
Thank you.
And I bring that up to say because, I say, hey, we got to accept an offer on the property, you still want to see it? No, just let us know if it falls through. And all the time that I've gone through and actually written the back offer, I have got that accepted. I don't know how many times, it probably, and ultimately came around back to us, more times,
Well, let's talk about this property that we're in.
25% of the time.
Like the one we're in, it literally, we went after
We're
it.
sitting in this house. We wrote an offer. First came to the market. Day one, we saw it, wrote. There was another offer, and they accepted that other offer. And condition time frame, so I'm checking in. Hey, how's that? You guys still got that property? Is it still conditionally sold? Yeah, it's still conditionally sold. They gave that buyer, I think, 2 extensions for financing.
It was like 5
days.
Yeah, it was like,
Condition time frame. They said it was done.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, well, we're back on. Here's our offer again.
and was it the same price?
We did offer the same price again. We ended up coming up a little bit on the price point, just to the price that made sense. And then finally, it's like, does your seller want to go through the roller coaster ride again?
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah.
And so we got that cash out conditions offer. So in those situations, is then the seller says, hey.
Yeah, and it was hilarious, not hilarious to, I'm sure, the seller, but just the fact that, again, and I'm sure the difference in funds and everything was probably, I'm gonna guess, under $20,000. I'm gonna guess, but in somewhere around that, am I wrong?
Yeah, from there on, illusion, yeah, what it was, what we got it.
Yeah, and was it worth all that stress to try and get that little bit of extra for, for the realtor's clients? But it just goes to show you that the cool thing here though is Tyler kept following up and kept doing that due diligence. Because exactly what he said, there are lazy people out there that it doesn't matter what industry it is, there are lazy people. There are lazy real estate investors. It doesn't matter, okay? But the key here is make sure whoever you're partnering with is going to follow up. If you've said to your agent, okay, I like this price point, so here's one of my strategies. Sometimes I'll look at a house and I'll go, okay, you know what? Thank you. Here's what I want to do. This house, I want to offer this much, but it's only been on the market 2 days. Let's come back 30 days from now and let's put this offer in. I don't think anyone's going to actually buy this house, But sometimes I just get a vibe that tells me I shouldn't go in right now at this price point because I'll just piss them off, right? And this is all strategy, right? Again, and that's where,
On 28th Street, we did it.
That's right.
5 months ago,
yeah.
and they started at 29, and we're like, well, this is like, I'm gonna wait. Epic offer, and every time a price drop, 30 days, listen, you wanna write that offer, listen, you wanna write that offer, listen, you wanna write that offer. And eventually, 169, 159, I'm like, you go in there, and she's like, yeah, we'll go back and look again, and we wrote that offer. We got it for less than what we were originally talking about 5 months before, right?
Yeah.
So.
Something in my gut just said, wait, just wait on this one. And
We're in the standing in this other, this is a problem, this is a structural problem. We're looking at this, and we're like, no one's gonna buy this. No one else is gonna buy this.
fix it. I knew what to do to it. All the things that were the issues, not a problem for us. But I was like, what else wanted to tackle it?
Price got right. Make it work.
Yeah, I think by the time we got it done, it was like $100,000 for the next.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Because it was the value minus the structural repairs that needed to be done, which again, if somebody wanted to go and do it on their own, that was not the world, they're probably gonna spend 40K on it. Whereas we did it in house for 510, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, there's like a spread because in that area and the fact that it's 2 suites, like the valuation is there. But
and had I gone in when they're listed at 230 and offered, well, I can't remember what exactly we bought it for. I want to say something like 145 or something, 150, somewhere in there.
It was,
Yeah.
yeah, high 40s.
Yeah, so yeah, might be 147, 148, somewhere, whatever. But had I gone in and said, hey, just offer 145 for 200, the person with the antennas would have went and said, forget it.
and it probably would have been like, don't ever look at anything from this company
Yeah.
again. They
Yeah.
insulted
Yeah.
us, my feelings are hurt,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, you have to be careful.
Tact. And that's, I mean, my whole purpose is strategy and how we're gonna present this in the best possible way to create company.
We are running out of time here.
Oh, yeah.
You guys want to do a tour?
Yeah, I can do a quick tour here.
Talk about why you like this house and.
Yeah, sure. So Tyler, what caught your eye about this house for bringing it to our attention?
So the big thing here was 2 units, again, and under the fact that although it wasn't legal, we got, programming, so legalization of existing suites, we can put that in there again if we needed to. We'll get called on it. The other thing is, the more bedrooms we have, the more income we're gonna get on the property. So, yeah, just location where I'm looking out the window right here, directly across from the elementary school, which is always a big rental increase rate for your renters, so I want to be close to the schools.
So can you hear his language? He's continuously talking about how it fits into a rental portfolio because he understands our end product is a rental portfolio product for our investors. So we're gonna do a quick, we'll run through. I'll just whip through and do this. Thank you. So again, it's as Tyler stated, is a school. Anyone who wanted to do that. And back here we have, the kitchen and this is kind of like a dining area. There is here the little bedroom that's kind of on this main floor. Again, it's a perfect size for an office, and it also had a bathroom, which I liked because again, in some areas it's good to have multiple bathrooms. In our portfolio, depends on the location of the property.
Makes it that much larger. So what you saw in there was the original, would have been the original bathroom before the property was built. We also got really high ceilings, which is not normal in the.
It's not, which is cool.
No,
Yeah.
and then we got more multiple bathrooms.
Yeah. And then this kitchen, again, it's not super sexy, but it's completely functional for rental. It's gonna service a really good sized family, it's a lot of storage, and they still have room for a kitchen table and a living dining, all the things. This is the door to the suite and garage. And then here's another bedroom that is on the main floor. Again, nothing crazy. It's probably an 11 by 11, maybe an 11 by 10. Perfect size for a good size bedroom. And then there's this bathroom. Again, a good sized bathroom. We do try in our houses to always get one bathroom that has a tub, shower, sink, and toilet. Sometimes we only end up with one bathroom with a toilet and shower and a sink, but we really try to have a full piece, at least one of the bathrooms being a full piece. It just seems to work really well for families and stuff. And then up here is two bedrooms. So these are actually over top of the garage. And again, really good sizes. Yeah. So yeah, and the house was in, again, it's in rental condition. It's not necessarily homeowner or flip condition. Because a lot of homeowners are like, oh my gosh, look at this new bedroom. A lot of tenants don't care, right? They want safe signs, clear product. They're coming in and they want to be able to live happy. But we are going to paint this house. But I'm just saying, as far as rental standards go, it's just in a great position. So we'll go down to the basement suite. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So out here, this will take you to the garage. Okay. I'll let you go ahead and then you can find lights for me. Let there be lights. So can we get a little bit of work to do with this? This is really interesting. Ironically, somebody actually took the time to stick out this concrete. I just thought that was really entertaining. Anyway, so here you can see have to add in can open, have the window well put in. Again, we do that in house. We have a little bit of clean up here to do. This is just a living room. And that's perfect for us. The main area is actually a nice size open concept. It is a little bit different. It's got the wall right here. Laundry. And then down here, just a nice little L kitchen, right? And then living room kind of space, decent size. Again, not exactly gorgeous, but a great safe, sound, secure rental. Bathroom again, tub, shower, sink, and toilet combination. Because it's just a really functional bathroom. And then it's got this little small bedroom. We have a little bit of work to do. Crazy again. And this little room. We will have to work on the window being egress. But yeah, that's it. Little paint, little added, and what that means is legalize the existing and it's an option here in Saskatoon to do that. The suite was existing before 1999. You can actually get a 14-point check to do it. And it's way cheaper to do that than to take something up to a legal suite position. And so, yeah, that is actually something cool that Saskatoon does offer. Again, it's another reason we like buying properties here. Is for that is the LES option to be able to legalize something. So yeah, we'll head upstairs and again, if you have any questions about realtors or anything like that, we're going to drop Tyler's info in here. If anybody's looking for a great realtor, call Tyler. If you're looking to sell your home, if you're looking to work with an agent that gets real estate investment, again, we don't buy every single property that Tyler has available. Yeah, and we'll put it in the chat too. And yeah, so by all means, reach out to him. He's an amazing person to work with. He has great integrity. He's a family man. All the things. I really do. It's so refreshing to be able to
Good, I'm glad. Because absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, and you know, that's just part of the call, you know, if it's like thinking about doing something today, 4 months down the road, 6 months,
Yeah.
1 year, you know, it doesn't matter. Let's talk and, you know.
And
it
he is
makes sense.
incredibly, his, information level on, he corrects me verbiage all the time, or that kind of thing, he'll be like, "I don't know what the term is." Great, that's his job, that's his lane, and I'm glad he knows all those things, and it's also why I would recommend him, because he does know a lot of ins and outs, and that is something you have to understand, this person that you're working with in real estate to buy your home, is the largest transaction that most people are making in their life. You want somebody that is going to point out, hey, this is okay, this is not okay. And I love it too, that Tyler has that construction background, because he knows how important, foundation, roof, you know, like, go approach a house all the time. Yeah, that is your water, the reason we don't get because we don't know. And he'll look at that, and he'll know that too, right? That's
I mean, between the two of us and, you know, when we walk around, we find the majority of the issues. I mean, I'm not a home inspector.
No.
But at the same point, I am able to point out a lot of the big ones that I do see. And, you know, that kind of preludes to say, hey, you know, now that you're aware of this, is this still on the table? Is this that a deal breaker?
Yeah.
We want to go further and spend more of your time and putting together something on something you're not going to buy.
Yeah. All right. And now when you're able to put that in the chat, thank you so much, Paul. You're the best. And I think okay, so we're gonna do our little, I'll hold this, and I think there's a button, and we're gonna say, stab it.
Guys, we'll
Yes.
catch you next week.
And by all means, send your questions in, and we'll forward them to Tyler, or send them directly to Tyler.
Bye.